Welcome to Show Me Sports Legacies. I'm your host, Jeff Crowley, and I'm here with co-host Chris Hockenfels. And today we are talking Gallatin Golf, Titletown. Gallatin Golf has a rich history, and we're going to get into it today. And it really, Chris, reminds me of one of our episodes we did about Putnam County softball. They just were bigger than life and had a little bit of swagger to them when they played all these small schools, as they won 6 titles over a 20-year period.
Yeah, and one of the best things about living in a rural area like Northwest Missouri is you get to see these pockets of greatness from schools like Gallatin or Putnam County, where a group comes together and is so good at the sport that they have. And sometimes they get overlooked. Sometimes you don't remember. And it shows like these, we try to bring back the memories of these great runs like Putnam County softball or Gallatin golf, where they just dominate the scene for a number of years with state championships and district championships and great players and state medalists. And in this case, a professional that comes out of the mix, and that is on the PGA Tour. So a really good episode. Looking forward to today.
This was kind of reminds you of the Patriots dynasty. You know, they had 2 distinctive parts to it. 1999, 2000, 2002, Gallatin wins state championship, and Brice Garnett spins off from that to an All-American career at Missouri Western, and then starts his pro career, which has led to success on the PGA Tour. And then come around in 2016, 17, and 18, they win 3 straight, which Brice's teams won 3 out of 4 years. And they win 3 straight again, almost 14 years later. It's amazing.
Yeah, and for it to come out of that little golf course in that little community makes it even a greater accomplishment. And when they did it, especially that first round, it was even tougher for a small school like Gallatin to win a state championship because all of the private schools that were in golf played in Class 1. Well, most of them played in Class 1. So you had to go through a lot of those private schools, where now they've leveled the playing field a little bit in MSHA's state qualifications, where if you win multiple state titles, you bump up a class or 2. So not every Class 1 small school like a Gallatin or Putnam County has to face the private schools. So their titles are amazing in that first run and even that second run, where they've had to go through the gauntlet and beat all those really, really good golf schools.
Today, our 2 guests, Chad Sullenger, who was a player on those early teams along with Brice. Brice was a freshman on that first state-winning team, and Chad was a junior and senior, those first 2. Then Chad became the coach in 2016, 17, and 18, and Brice Garnett will be joining us by phone, which is exciting.
And a milestone for our podcast, Jeff, which I believe is the first professional athlete that we have on the podcast. Brice is a member of the PGA and plays on the PGA Tour. So exciting stuff for our podcast today.
He's definitely created a legacy, and everybody in this area roots for him, and he has done some great things on the PGA Tour. So we're going to have those guys join us in just a moment and tell the story of Gallatin Golf. Since 1999, Gallatin has won 6 state championships with 2 distinct groups of teams, winning in 1999, 2000, 2002, then again in 2016, 2017, 18. With an excellent team performance, they've also been led by star performers, names like current PGA Tour Professional Brice Garnett and Jet Simmons, a 2018 Missouri State gold medalist. Just this spring, they've continued the tradition with Brody Bird being the second individual state champion from Gallatin, Missouri, with his win. Joining us today are 2 key parts of this Gallatin Bulldog golf legacy on Show Me Sports Legacies. By phone, we are happy to be able to talk with Brice Garnett. Brice is a 2-time PGA Tour champion with 7 total professional tour wins in his professional golfing career. He attended Missouri Western State University, where he was a 3-time Division II All-American. Started his professional career in 2006, earning his PGA Tour card in 2014. Then in 2017, was playing on the Web.com Tour and finished in first place in the standings to earn his return to the PGA Tour, where he continues to compete at the highest level of golf in 2025. Also joining us on Show Me Sports Legacies in the studio, we have Chad Sullenger. Chad is a constant in the history of Gallatin golf as a key member of the 1999-2000 state champions, as a player, and then as a coach leading the Gallatin team to glory with state championships in 2016, 2017, and 2018. Chad continued coaching golf through 2024 and now serves as activities director for the Gallatin R5 School District and sports dad and all sorts of other stuff because he's running around even today. So guys, welcome to Show Me Sports Legacies.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Thanks for having us.
We love stories about small town success in sports, and Gallatin is a shining example. So let's talk about how this developed and how this happened. Brice, I know in an article that I read, it said you had been playing golf since you were 5 years old. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was all my mom and dad. My dad been a member at Davies County Country Club for many years, and he kind of introduced me to the game and got me started swinging out there. Mostly enjoyed driving the golf cart, but was out there swinging a little bit, hitting the ball around with a bunch of his older friends. And as time went on, the country club there kind of served as a babysitter for Chad, myself, and 6 or 8 of our other closest buddies. And it's kind of where we spent the majority of our summer between baseball games, basketball games. Most of it was there at Davies County Country Club, playing golf or swimming in the pool or just hanging out. So kind of where it all began, and just so many amazing childhood memories stem back to those days.
Chad, how about you? How did you come to golf?
Well, I was a little later, a little more of a late bloomer than Brice. I was not really familiar with the golf course at that age, young of an age as he was. I think I had a friend that actually asked me to go play golf one day when I was younger, and I can't recollect how old I was, but I went out there with that friend of mine, and again, we had a good time driving the golf cart and riding around and on that to begin with. But we played a little bit, and then I saw Brice out there and Scott Croce and Jake Humphrey and some of those other guys out there, and I thought, this is like kind of a fun thing to do. So I went home and talked to my mom and said, asked if there was any way I could, go play out there more. And so that just kind of evolved through the years, and we ended up getting a membership and a golf cart, and off we went. Like Brice said, it was a place where we could play golf, and we could go around and round and round and jump in the pool and get out and play some golf. And so that's about basically what our whole summer was every day.
Chris?
Yeah, I've got a question about growing up there. Like, for you guys, is there like a godfather of the course there, someone who was kind of coaching you guys up, or a mentor that was always kind of there giving you tips? Or was it more of we learned to play as a group together and helped each other out?
Well, I mean, yeah, Chad and I both actually worked at the golf course later into our teenage years. We were part of the maintenance crew there, and there was an older gentleman named Ivan Bridgman who was kind of the supervisor and greenskeeper, and he sold ping equipment on the side, but he was kind of one of the only guys around the town and the country club that actually knew some stuff about the game and some instruction wise. So I think he would always push us and kind of watch us as we grew and give us little bits of advice here and there. And he was probably somebody we all kind of looked up to and respected. And it was just always fun. And Ivan would always probably hit more balls than we would when he was helping us. It was kind of a funny joke, but he was always a solid sounding board and somebody we could always go to if, we had any questions.
Very cool.
I saw a quote from Scott Croce after you won the first championship, I think, and he was talking about that you guys had just known each other since you were little guys and were best friends and were always playing golf, just a group of you. That probably helped you when you were competing together because you knew each other so well you could really fit together as a team, really make it work. It just seems that Gallatin has that kind of fertile ground with the course there and everything for kids to get a lot of time on the golf course, and that's always critical.
Yeah, that place, we that's where we grew up. I mean, honestly, all of us. It was not just me. It was me, Brice. It was Jake, Scotty, John Culver, Bob Wiley, Ryan Thompson. There was a whole gang of us, and I'm sure the old guys, when they saw us coming in our golf cart, would want to get away as fast as they could. But, I mean, it was, when we were younger, it was literally, our parents dropped us off, and, we had a pro shop there with some snacks, and we would hit the course before the pool opened, and if it got hot enough, we'd go jump in the pool, and then we'd be back out on that golf cart playing some more. So it's definitely a unique place, and thank heavens that it's still that way to this day.
So I've seen some pictures of you guys in those early days, and there's some pictures of Brice going back before he was like 10 years old. And who is this little guy became a PGA Tour pro? I mean, it's fun to see, and I love the backward hats. There were a lot of backward hats that I saw.
We were pretty cool back in the day, there's no doubt.
Ken Griffey influences.
The country club there, I think one of the things that, we were all very competitive no matter what we were doing, and we were able to push each other and drive each other. And those early years in the late '90s and early 2000s, when all this kind of started taking place in the state golf championships, we were able to push ourselves, but we were also able to look over our shoulder and know that the guy behind us is doing what he needs to do to raise another trophy. So the competitiveness was there from the early years.
There was kind of a buildup, it seemed like, with your dad coaching, kind of a buildup in the late 1990s when Chad was a freshman, I guess, making it to state for the first time, showing out well, and then in 1997, a fourth place finish in Class 1 in 1998. In 1999, Chad, when this freshman Brice shows up, I mean, did you know that was just going to spark even more? I mean, he was already a comer, and you probably already saw him ready to jump in and play well as a freshman.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it wasn't any secret. I played with him for, I don't know how many years before then. It really wasn't any guesswork on what was going to happen. I already knew that he was going to be, and how I viewed at that time was he's going to be my competition to try to make the top five. And with our group, it was so competitive, like Brice said, that, I mean, shoot, your first goal was to just make the varsity team. Yeah, I knew without a doubt, getting him and also getting Jake, which Jake was also in the same grade as Brice, getting both of those guys, I knew was going to elevate our team. But at the same time, I'm going, I got to take care of my business because I want to be on that top five.
I totally get that. Brice, how did you feel coming in as a freshman? You knew these guys and you knew they were looking for you to contribute right away.
Oh, yeah. When Dad took over the coaching job, I don't know when that was, 98, I was going to the state tournament with those guys. These were my best buddies. So it was like, I felt like I was on the team. And I remember in 99, with the 99, they finished fourth or 98. I don't remember. 98, they finished fourth. And I remember thinking, this is doable. And there was a good, strong group of guys coming back. And then, like Chad said, Jake and I were coming up. And I remember John Culver looking at me when they finished fourth. I was just an eighth grader. He looked at me and said, next year's my senior year, and we got to get this done. And I always remember that. And it was pretty special, I know, for John to go out on top his senior year. And that was just kind of the start of our run.
Now, who were some of your main rivals in the area, in the GRC or in district level? Or who were some of the teams that you pointed for and that kind of measured your team up against them?
Yeah, I don't remember many local teams that were able to really give us much of a fight. There were a few teams on the state level that were always there, but locally, there were some good players on teams, but overall as a team, there wasn't much competition. We were shooting 140s and lower in 9-hole matches where everybody was averaging, close to a 35. So when you start stacking 4 and 5 of those up in 9-hole matches, it's pretty tough to compete at that level.
That depth made all the difference because you could see in the district titles, Brice, you didn't always win those tournaments, or you didn't have the top golfer every single time. There'd be people that would be in the mix, but there wouldn't be 2 from those schools generally.
Right. And that's what, I remember one thing that Tom used to always say to us. He said, when one of you are off or have a bad day, the other 4 were good enough to pick that player up. And that was 100% true, and that was 100% of why we had that success. Is we didn't have 2 guys that could shoot in the low 70s and kind of pack our team. We had 5 guys that could play, and not everyone's going to have a great day every single time. So I think that was a huge part of our success when being so consistent.
So talk to me about that 1999 experience, going to state, you're trying to climb the mountain and win. What were some of the memorable things from that couple of days? Go right ahead, Brice.
I just remember, my dad was more or less a bus driver, but he was a motivator, and he was able to push our buttons, and he knew how to push each and every one's buttons to get the best out of us. And we kind of knew going in that year that we were the team to beat, and sometimes that's hard. The hardest part is to succeed whenever you have those kind of expectations on you. But he was able to keep everybody loose, and we had such a fun group of guys, and all the parents that were there. It was more or less just like a big traveling circus. We ate big dinners together and laughed and joked, and everything was was very relaxed, and I think that was pretty much why we were able to succeed. We were confident, but we were also very grounded, and we knew what we could do, and we were able to get that job done 3 or 4 times.
Was there any course shock and awe when you get to the state level, like you've been playing at Gallatin and Lawson, maybe Bethany? I don't know, smaller courses playing 9 holes, and now all of a sudden you've got to compete, and it's a bigger course, 18 holes. Or did you just feel comfortable because your home course had kind of prepped you well enough to play on the big courses?
I would say for me, it was in some ways. I didn't play as many, I guess, junior golf series as Brice and like Scotty Croce did. They were probably the most experienced in those areas. I would say that the biggest thing for me personally was definitely the speed of the greens were a different level than we see in our area, which was something I always had to adjust to. And I mean, man, everybody gets nervous on that first tee shot. Thing with everyone standing around watching you. I just remembered after my junior year, I can't remember what shot I hit, but I remember my senior year, I was like, all I got to do is tell myself to keep my head down. That's all I got to do. So for me, there was, but, I'm not sure for Brice.
Okay, so you guys did pull through, and I don't think it was that close. I mean, you won that title kind of going away, and then you come back in 2000 with pretty much the same cast, one different guy. Was it different trying to repeat as a champ, or was that just you're in your groove at that point?
I think at that time, at least in my perspective, Tom had planted that seed that we're not satisfied with going and getting one. And as a matter of fact, he made a few wagers with us, which occurred with ear piercings. At that time, the cool thing was to get your ear pierced. And he told us, he said, if we go get another one, I'm getting my ear pierced. And so there were little motivating factors that he kind of kept us on edge with. He kept us sharp with still not being content with just one. And so, really, I take that my senior year, the 2000 year, is more business. It was just business and go play, but still have that edge. And Tom did a great job with keeping us level headed, but still hungry.
Brice, how about you? What was different about that second year, and what do you remember in that run to the championship?
I don't remember a whole lot about the second one. I do remember that we were very confident and probably even on the cocky side at some point. We were kind of mowing through the conference and districts. And I think, once we showed up at state, we probably thought we had even a stronger team the second go-around than we did the first go-around. So we just knew we had to keep our head down that week, keep plugging. And I do remember, I think we had a pretty good lead going in the second day. So we just had to make sure we could walk 18 holes at that point, I believe.
I think that's right. You were blowing them away again. So you were established clearly. And Chad, you finished up at that point. That was it. You drug Brice into some basketball playing, I think. I want you guys to talk about that, because we talk a lot about sports and being a multi-sport athletes and the opportunity afforded to you in small towns to do that, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And Chad was a pretty good basketball player, and Brice, you turned into a pretty good basketball player, it seemed like, from looking at the stats. And
it was all my tutelage.
That's right. Yeah,
Chad shot a lot. It looked like he did. He scored a lot of points.
He shot a lot and he made a lot, but
Yep.
we had battles, man. I was a sophomore and he was a senior, and I remember my freshman year we had an extremely strong group of guys playing basketball. So I didn't see the court. I saw a little bit of the court on my sophomore year, but those teams were strong and aggressive and fast. And I remember I was the second string guy that got to go up against Sully every day in practice, and we usually came out of there scratched and bruised, and but we were best buddies and we loved each other, and I think that made it so much fun.
Coach Lynn, your coach also, Rick, right? So that was must have been great. I mean, I coached against him for a long time, and he was always considered one of the, or if not the best coach in the area at that time, and always was willing to help us out as young coaches in the area, but always respected him the way he ran his program. So I bet you it was fun playing for him too.
Yeah, it was. Brice and I were, when you actually sit back and think about, our high school careers and our opportunities, we had some darn good ones, including Tom as well. We're very fortunate. We competed a lot. Obviously, since we were little, we competed for spots on the golf team. We competed for time on the basketball court, but I don't think we ever had one moment where we were mad at each other or upset about anything with each other. We just kind of knew it was just competition, and then wherever the chips fell, they fell.
Okay, Brice, you had a couple more years and you got a second place in that junior year and then came back and set records and winning as a senior. So anything stand out about those last 2 years? Any disappointment in that second place finish? So you didn't get that run of 4 straight championships that you turned into something in that senior year?
Yeah, I remember the junior year we had a good battle with Burnham or I can't remember the team we beat for a couple years there, the first 2 years, and we Joey Evans and Jake Humphrey both were assessed a 2-shot penalty. I'm not going to say that the team was kind of put up to it, but it was kind of weird in the sense that they were both the exact same 2-shot penalties, where one of those players from the other team was needing Joey and Jake to move their coin for a putt, and then they didn't replace the coin back, so they played the next shot from an incorrect spot, so they were both assessed a 2-shot penalty, and I think we ended up losing that tournament by maybe 4 if I recall. But it was kind of bitter. I don't want to say that they did that on purpose, but it's kind of ironic that both of those guys were assessed those 2-shot penalties, and it kind of kept us hungry, which was good. And then we brought in a couple new guys. Duke Burge came in, Patrick Dixon, I believe, came in my senior year, and we had a phenomenal state that year where we did set some records, and I think that one was over for sure after the first day as well.
Oh my gosh, I think it was 33 strokes.
Yeah.
And 608 set a Class 1 total scoring record for lowest score at state. So outstanding. Third in the gold medal competition as a singles player. So
yeah, I think Daniel Cordray was one of the guys that beat me, and he ended up being one of my teammates and roommates at Missouri Western. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah, Missouri Western just seemed to sit back there and pick off all the best golfers from Gallatin and other places like that. They've got
they didn't have to do much of the recruiting trail. There was some pretty strong junior golf around the area at that time, and they latched onto them.
So you went to Missouri Western and were 3-time Division II All-American. What's the highlight of your college career? What did you learn as a college golfer maybe that got you prepared mentally to think about a pro career?
Well, yeah, I mean, Missouri Western was unbelievable for me. I kind of had dreams and going playing Division I maybe at the University of Missouri, and they said the roster was full, they didn't need me, and kind of motivated me, kept me hungry through my college years. I was very surprised in college how much free time you get, and I pretty much had all my focus on golf during that free time. So I was able to really dig into my game and dig into my practice, and I really saw some big jumps there in my first few years of college, and just the experiences, being able to play right away, get all 4 years playing college golf, get to travel with the team, the coach, all those experiences just really paid off my last 2 years, and end up having a super successful college career. And looking back at it, I'm extremely happy that Missouri turned me down and got to spend my time in St. Joseph. You
also spent a little time with the academics, a business finance major who had all MIAA credentials on the academic side. So you were preparing yourself. You had a fallback career, but you also knew that business degree was going to help you with what you were going to try to accomplish as a golfer, I presume.
Yeah, that was my whole plan. Sure, I watched the PGA Tour on TV and wanted to compete and play on that level, but really at no point until my senior year did that ever really become like a reality where I might chase this thing. So my whole plan was to get into the finance business and investment business. I spent the summer before my senior year doing an internship at Bank of America in Kansas City, and quickly found that a 9-to-5 job is not what I want to do. So had a really good senior year in college, and it wasn't until about Christmas time my senior year, my dad, I was home for Christmas break, and dad asked, "Hey, would you be interested in maybe, trying this golf thing a little bit longer?" And he'd been doing a lot of research for mini tour golf and where I could start, talking to some people about raising some money, kind of getting some money behind me. And I was like, I am in, because I don't want to go sit behind a desk right now. So yeah, I started that right away and never even looked back at the finance stuff.
What are those early years like? I mean, the sacrifices, how you move around, sharing hotel rooms, apartment, trying to slog your way up the chain. You had 8 years to get to that PGA Tour card.
Yeah, it was probably, some of my most fun years as a pro golfer, just because as you move up levels in professional golf, the camaraderie moves down. And so, those early years, I was fortunate early in my mini tour career. I got kind of mixed in with a bunch of guys from Dallas and Houston, and we would travel together. You're right. We would stay 2 and 3 to a hotel room. We would do housing where people in the neighborhood or community would put us up, and we, stay with them for the week. And so it wasn't a very lonely road at that point. And so those are like still some of my best friends, just because of the times we got to spend together. We were all competing at the same time, but we were all good friends. And as you move up, more and more entourages start traveling, more families start traveling. And so, the PGA Tour at times can be a lonely road, and it's very cutthroat and it's very competitive, and everybody's out for themselves for the most part. So those early years are definitely, years that I remember vividly being some of the most fun years of my golfing career.
I saw one interview that I think was in the Gallatin paper that I saw it. And you talked about, with fondness, about those years. And then you talked about the kind of deer in the headlights aspect of arriving on the PGA Tour and kind of that, have I made it, or am I just watching this happen in front of me? And that it was kind of a traveling circus, and rubbing shoulders with Phil and Tiger and people in the same locker rooms was, you had to mentally adjust and lock down on what you were trying to accomplish, I think is what you said in that article.
Yeah, those are surreal moments. I mean, when you're sitting in your locker and Sergio Garcia's sitting right next to you, putting his shoes on. They do the lockers by alphabetical order, so I was always next to Sergio. And but yeah, that it's tough because you've competed, and I'd been successful at every level leading up to that, and then you get out there and you're playing against guys that have been your idols and guys that have played these golf courses and have made millions of dollars. But you quickly find out, you have to remind yourself that you're there for a reason, and then you've earned your stripes. And I kept pushing. I had a really good year that first year. I made a bunch of cuts. I think made over 20 cuts my first year, and was one of the only two rookies who kept their card that year, kept their job, and I was one of the two. So after that, you settle in and you realize, hey, this is a golf course, and these people are coming to watch you because you're a good golfer. So just settle in and understand this is what you want to do, and this is what you work for.
Chad, was there anything about that time that you remember with your buddy out there trying to make his way that you took in while you were watching him do that? Oh,
absolutely. I'll never forget. He at that time when he was first starting, he'd come back some, and we would play at the course at Gallatin. And there for a while, we were able to kind of stack the teams against him when we would play. We would play like a 2 or 3 man team. We would kind of stack the teams against him, and we would be able to compete somewhat. And then I don't know when in what part of his early career it was, but he came back again several years, and there was nothing we could do. He just absolutely wowed me, and I don't think I've ever told him this, but he absolutely wowed me with how impressive he was. And I knew right then that I think I was done playing golf with Brice competitively unless I got a bunch of strokes a hole.
Or you could be on my team.
Yeah. Well.
That'd be a good thing. So you've got a lot of people behind you, and then you have that early success. And then in 2017, you rejoined the web.com tour, but you just rip that thing up and get right back into the PGA Tour in 2018. How did you take that challenge, and what did you get from that year on the web.com tour and the success that you had to re-enter the PGA world and take it from there? Yeah,
in 15 and 16, I had struggled a little bit with my game. Kind of was faced with a 2-way miss where didn't quite know if I was going to miss it left or right. And when that happens and you lose a little bit of confidence, they will kick you off that tour in a heartbeat. And it was just kind of a point in my career where I could look at it 2 ways. I could be like a little bullish and upset that I lost my position on the PGA Tour, or I could put my nose down and go back to work and actually dig in and fix what needs to be fixed. And at that point, I'd had my swing coach, John Tillery, for about 3 years. And so We kind of looked at 2017 as a rebuilding year, and a year that I needed to spend on the Korn Ferry, building confidence and learning how to compete and win again. And first half of the year was pretty slow, and then I ended up winning a couple events, made 2 or 3 starts, and really rocketed me back right after the PGA Tour. Won the money list that year and built my confidence back, and really kind of found a love and a work ethic that I needed to find.
And when you rejoined the tour, you immediately, pretty quickly, won your first tournament.
It was, yeah. So I won in the Dominican Republic in 2018. That would have been maybe in March. It was pretty early. Funny story about the Dominican that year. I had played the prior year in 17 on the Korn Ferry Tour on that course at the Dominican. And it wasn't a good golf course for me. It was a big golf course. It was long, wide open, and it just didn't really suit my game. I struggled on it that year on the Korn Ferry, and I told my agent, I said, I'm not going to the Dominican this year. I think I'm going to take that week off, kind of rest, work on my game, and then show back up wherever we were the next week. And he said, no, he said, you got to go to the Dominican. He said, why don't you just go down there and win? And got off to a hot start that year, shot 9 under the first round, and kind of never looked back. And it's kind of funny how, those little points in time of your career, kind of mold you and can push you over the edge. And it was a week that, I guess I was treating it more like a vacation. I had no expectations and snuck up and did something big.
Brice, I had a question for you since the U.S. Open just happened, and I'm not sure what your thoughts about it, but as a golf fan watching when the USGA puts together a course like that and brings everybody back to close to even par, and then you get to the back 9 on the last day and there are no superstars on that leaderboard. There's no Rory, there's no Jordan, there's no Justin, there's no Brooks, there's no Dustin. Your thoughts on a guy like JJ winning that and what that does for the PGA Tour as a whole?
Well, JJ, I've played a lot of golf with JJ, and I really like JJ. His game has really rounded into form in the last year, and he's a great guy. So, I was so excited, and we were rooting for him the whole week for him pull it out. But I was served on the Player Advisory Council in 2023. I got to sit in on a lot of meetings and stuff. I was privileged to some information, and I lost a little respect for a lot of the guys on tour because I could see the direction that the tour was wanting to go, and it was wanting to limit starts, start to eliminate players, start eliminating people that retain their cards the following year. And this year they're cutting 25 guys off the PGA Tour from 125 to 100. And that tournament right there really just screams why I think some of the top guys on the player board want this to happen, because of guys like JJ Spawn, who were 160th or 70th in the world a year ago. Those guys are good enough to win any week and win a major championship if things come together at the right time. So, I think that right now the state that the professional golf is in is the strongest outside of when Tiger was there. But, from top to bottom, a field is the strongest it's ever been. Any of the 150 guys that tee it up can win a golf tournament. And I think it's just pretty sad that they're trying to limit guys and kind of protect their own ego and finances in a sense. But U.S. Open, USGA, they put on a demanding week. I've been fortunate enough to play in 2 U.S. Opens, one at the Olympic Club where I think Webb Simpson won with an over par score, and then one up at Erin Hills where it was a little bit easier, a new venue. But it's demanding, it's tough, and usually the guy that wins it is the most deserving mentally and with his game, he was able to put it all together. So it's a huge accomplishment for JJ, and I hope this serves as a viewing point for the tour and fans that, hey, we don't have to have superstars for the game to succeed.
I've got a couple quick questions, and then we're going to roll into some 2016 to 18 Gallatin golf stuff. People ask me, is there a palpable difference in nerves, pressure when you are near the lead or on the lead? And in 2024, you won the Puerto Rico Open in a multi-hole playoff. So what got you over the line on that trophy? And is that a real thing, or are you prepared for that mentally and physically so that when you're in that moment, you're just playing well enough and you trust in all of that?
Yeah, it's weird. Golf is so weird because there's weeks when I'm, on the cut line and I feel the nerves. And then there's weeks where you're towards the top or winning and may not feel as many nerves because you are, like, when you're at the top, you're in control of your emotions, your game is sharp, you're playing well. Sometimes when you're fighting out cuts, you just know it's not quite there that week and you're trying to piece it together just to get a paycheck. But yeah, in Puerto Rico, I was, that was my first start last year on the PGA Tour. I was kind of playing out of a past champions category, and I just took that week as my week that I had to play well. And I went down there expecting to play well and got off to a great start, and played with confidence on the weekend, and didn't really pay too much attention to the leaderboards all week. I was just kind of competing against myself. I had played a few small mini tournaments at home against myself on my home course where I was trying to shoot 4 under a day. And then once I did that, I was trying to just even push it even farther. So that's kind of how my caddy Chris and I approached that week. We were playing, my little mini tournament here on my home course. And once we got 4 under for the day, we were saying, all right, let's go get 7 under. And so that's probably what I need to do more often. But I was very comfortable that week, and that's kind of the approach that we took. And just thankful that last putt went in on that playoff. It really, afforded me 2 or 3 more years.
That's great. Now, my daughter Kendall is a buddy with Hayden Bradford, who is a player for Chad and part of his teams. And Hayden he loves golf, and he's a big fan of yours. So he demanded that I ask you a question on his behalf. Okay. So,
okay.
And he did want to know what it's like to be paired with certain PGA pros, and Scotty Scheffler was a name he came up with. But I'd love to hear any story about pairings or perhaps friendships or rivalries that really stand out to you and that you love the competition with certain people when you're teeing it up with them.
Yeah, I haven't been able to play with Scotty in a tournament. I've actually played 9 holes with in a practice round with Scotty, so that was pretty fun. He's so impressive. But I think what makes it the hardest is that he's such a nice guy. You have to love him. He's grounded. Golf comes second or third. Probably his faith and family both come before golf, which is admirable. But looking back through the years, I've had some awesome pairings, and just, learning from those guys, watching them, asking them questions, and just seeing how they went about their business. I haven't been paired with Tiger. I haven't been paired with Phil. I haven't really been paired, I guess, with Rory either. So I haven't had any like the number one guys in the world, but a lot of great players out there, and a lot of guys that I've looked up to throughout the years that have been fun to play with.
Well, I didn't get to half the stuff, and we're going to roll back to this other because Chad's got to hit the road to Gallatin here and pick up his kids. So we're going to circle back to that, but if you can hang on, Brice, I'd love for you to hang on and chip in with any observations about that. So, Chad, sure. Talk about your road back to coaching at Gallatin Golf, what you did going out of high school, college, and some of the coaching and things that you did that took you back to being the coach at Gallatin.
Well, when I graduated high school, I really wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. So, yeah, I like Brice. I went to Missouri Western, and he showed up a couple years later, and we were roommates and lived together and had a good time. But graduation, I went and worked for it's called Daimler Chrysler Financial Services in Kansas City. And like Brice, I quickly learned that doing that job, working nights, was not what I was going to do. So I decided to move back to Gallatin, and then for about a half a year, I did some stuff at the golf course and just some random stuff, and got a call from the school one day and said, hey, would you like to be a junior high assistant coach? And so I thought about it a little bit, and I decided, okay, I'll do that. And kind of just that all kind of snowballed into, okay, then I decided I was going to go back to school and get my degree. Got lucky enough that one of my mentors, Dennis Croy, was a superintendent at James Sports. Gave me a chance there. Got a job there doing physical education and athletic director. And then, of course, at a small school like that, you're coaching everything.
You're sweeping the floor.
Yeah, you bet. And then, I spent 3 years, wonderful years there. I love that place and just learning. And so then I had the opportunity to come back to Gallatin and coach while I was at James Sport. I did coach boys softball, which they had that at the time. And there was a head girls varsity softball position open and a high school basketball assistant position open. And so I came back and taught PE and became the head varsity softball coach, and then was the assistant under Coach Lynn for, I think it was 2 years. The golf kind of part of the coaching wasn't really at the forefront at that time. And at Gallatin, I didn't start out as the golf coach. I coached 2 or 3 years, like I said, volleyball and basketball. And then they said, would you want to help out with golf? We've got a lot of golfers. And so I kind of came on as the assistant in that role, and was able to learn some things from Coach Gann when we went down to the state tournament as an assistant. And of course, things had totally changed by now. You know, when Brice and I played, you couldn't talk to anybody. Your coaches couldn't come talk to you. They couldn't come out. You were on an island. You were by yourself. And, the state had changed the rules to where, you could walk with the kids. You could kind of help club the kids. You can do basically everything except for read their putts. And so, I was running all over that golf course, being a lot younger at that time, helping Coach Gann and getting that experience and kind of the way he did things. And then that just kind of, as far as my overall coaching career, it just kind of continued to progress through the years.
You took over at a good time. You had some players coming, and you could see that. And Jet Simmons was kind of the top player, but you had a lot of other good players. Talk about what you got in 2016. What showed up on the course to play?
Yeah, very fortunate to coach those guys. That was Jet and Logan Burns and Gabe Cole, and of course I coached Hayden Bradford a little bit. And those guys reminded me somewhat of what we were like when we were young as players. Jet had a lot of tendencies, work ethic, like Brice had. Spent a lot of time on the golf course, spent a lot of time hitting balls. You could just tell that he was going to be, a heck of a player, because he just practiced and practiced and practiced. And it was really a great opportunity for me. I mean, made my job a heck of a lot easier whenever you got guys that can play and know what they're doing. That was just a very fortunate time to have that kind of talent come in whenever I'm coming in new.
Brice, are you, while you're grinding on tour, are you keeping an eye on your alma mater at this time, how they're doing, that they're making another state run? Or is
yeah. Yeah, I was keeping up. I mean, I knew, Chad was coaching, and but I knew all those kids because they grew up at Davies County Country Club like we did. So for sure, we were keeping up, watching, and I mean, they were able to get the three-peat, and we weren't.
So they got one on you, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Sully has more state championships than I do.
Can't argue with that. It's pretty good stuff. So you win in 2016, and you're not winning this by 30 strokes and things like that. These are tough competitions. And in 2017, when you're trying to repeat, tell us how that all came down.
Just kind of had to try to, I guess, channel my inner Tommy. What Tom taught us, besides motivation and being able to motivate young people. And Rick Lynn as well. It was to try to get them ready for the season and to give them a new goal or something new to shoot at for the year. Basically trying to get those kids to put the max effort they had into everything. And, Tom, for a kid like myself that, didn't play as much in the junior stuff, it was probably more beneficial to me what he said, because, I remember things, that at the time I was kind of listening and kind of not, but now they resonated as a coach. And, one of the things that he would always say is, hey, play the golf course. And I found that really difficult to do as a player, because I was always wanting to beat everyone else. And I didn't quite understand that 110% when he was telling me that. But moving on and getting older and learning the game more, that resonated with me. And so there were numerous things that not only he, but Coach Lynn, two of my coaches through my life, numerous little techniques and little tricks and little things that they would do to help motivate. I took and applied it to that team.
Outstanding. And you got right down to the end on that 2017 team, I believe. And your fifth player was Hayden.
Fifth player was Hayden Bradford. Hayden had a rough old first day, and he said, Coach, I think I'm not going to hit driver. And I said, Hayden, I think that's a fantastic idea. So every par 4 and par 5, Hayden hit a 4-iron off the tee. He did not hit a driver all day. And then, of course, the tiebreaker, we're done after our 4 best scores are in. Exactly knotted up, I think, with Greenwood. And coming down to Jet, and Jet's coming in last in the last group, and he's got to make par to win, bogey to tie, double to lose. And so he actually hooks his tee shot on 18 into some trees, and I'm walking with Jet, and I'm going, do I tell him or do I not tell him? Because I knew exactly where we were sitting at that time, and I decided at that moment not to tell him. Well, he makes bogey, and he goes, why didn't you tell me after the fact? So then, yeah, obviously, like I said, we're tied, and it goes to our fifth man score, and Mr. Bradford, Hayden Bradford, with the 4-iron off the tee all day, shoots a lower score. I think it was somewhere in the 90s. Shoots a lower score than the Greenwood 5 guy, and we win the state tournament.
A true team effort then for a state championship, and just the depth shows back up, right?
He's the fifth player.
Right, as the fifth player score is the determining factor. I love that.
Now, I'm going to say that I've known Hayden for a while, and he rocks that mullet pretty good. And he always seemed to grab the trophy in every picture.
He always had the trophy, and he was always in the middle, without a doubt. Hayden, he wanted to be in front of that camera, no doubt.
So you go on and win that third straight title that eluded Brice and that group. And you guys are on the front page of the paper, but I got to tell you, I've looked at the microfiche of the paper. Well, it's not microfiche. It's actually online. Trenton stuff is on microfiche. And the headline story on the front page is not you guys. You're on the page, but there's no picture until you get all the back to page 16. The headline story is some guy who showed up with a longhorn steer head and horns and was showing it around town. And it's like front page above the fold stuff. And I thought, man, is that the most small town thing you've ever heard in your life? You know,
someone had to make that decision, right, in the copy room or the editor's room of the paper. Like, okay, which one we going with? We're going with the guy with the horns. Yeah.
I mean,
hopefully he's not still editing.
Right.
I don't know, but that seems like a questionable call when you win 3 straight state championships and you don't get your picture with the trophy on the above the fold on page 1. But that's the paper's problem, not your problem. But you guys really did it, and that last year you really had to hold on because the weather and the fast course, it was hard and fast, and all the teams around you were just kind of backing it up, and you guys had to hold on to rise to the top on that one.
Yeah, I think that one. Was that one at River Cut? I think that one was at River Cut is where that one was. And if I remember right, man, that's a big golf course for Class 1. It is a big golf course. It's long, and I've been the River Cut several times as a coach, and the rough is no joke there. So yeah, what I remember from that is I remember hanging on Sundays. I mean, I was walking that golf course, and I think I don't know how many holes I walked that day, but I was trying to put out some fires with some players that were struggling that day, as it was a tough day, and what I do remember is with that we got everybody in, and Jet was last, and I think Jet had lead after the first day. That was the year when he won the state title, and I never walked with Jet, but I never. In any tournaments and any meets, I never walked with him. I just let him kind of do his thing. But that was his senior year, and so I decided okay, I'm gonna at least walk with him the last 9 holes of the state tournament. And so the funny thing was, and I can't remember if he had a. I got through 18. I think it was with Gabe, and about that time, I get a text from his mom saying Jet needs you, which I'd never gotten that in 4 years. And so I make the trek from 18 back around the clubhouse. And I catch him on 11, and I think he had it was either a 3 or 5 shot lead that had kind of gone away, and we were in struggle mode a little bit, and so to be able to walk with him, those last holes, and to see how he kind of got it together and played those last 6 or 7 holes fantastic, and ended up just cruising on the last hole to a win and in an individual state title was something I won't forget, and that's what probably made that one doubly special.
I'm going to ask a final question, and I'll start with you, Brice, and then you, Chad. What's the story of Gallatin golf in your opinion? I mean, what's it all about? What would you tell people that don't know about the trophies? What was it?
I think it's just a rich history of competitiveness that, we loved each other, we played for each other, and we loved winning. And so each and every day we competed against each other, and we were able to look over our shoulder in all the golf we played, and knew we were playing with some of our best friends. So just, brotherhood that we loved spending time with.
Yeah, I know. I agree 100%. And really the only thing I would add is just the community support, not only from just people randomly without the community, but to have the golf course, to have the availability we had to be able to work on our games at a free level and, never had any restraint upon anybody or anything, to be able to just have that support to go out there and get better. And, I think that was a huge thing for us as well.
I'm going to leave it with this a little bit. You guys set a record in 2018. That was the 6th title for Gallatin, and that put them number 1 in Class 1 of all time in championships. That's an underreported story. You guys both need to be in this Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and as a team, we've done a program about Putnam County softball, and they had a similar dominance in the 90s and the early 2000s. And they're in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. So we're all in your corner for that and want to get that story out to people. And it is spawned pro careers, college careers, and coaching careers like we see here today. So I want to thank you, Chad, for coming in and part as both a player and a coach, and Brice as the most successful golfer and athlete in Gallatin and North Central Missouri history. I want to personally thank you for your time today on the podcast and wish you continued success on the PGA Tour.
For having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Anytime.
guys. Great time.
Okay, we've kicked Chad out of the studio to go pick up his kids, and Brice is back to his obligations this week as a professional golfer, and we had a great conversation with him.
Yeah, and just to learn some of the ins and outs of being a PGA Tour professional and pairing that with coming from a small town and what you have to do to be a professional athlete and get to that level, coming through Gallatin and Missouri Western, places we're all familiar with because we've been through that. Our kids have played in those same types of cities and towns, and it makes it for a special podcast because it's close to home, and we can kind of live through that legacy like we try to do here and bring that to the forefront.
I know a lot of people that get alerts on their phone when Brice is in the running for things, that gather up around TVs and follow his career and just set that aside. It's just feeling like you have a piece of that. It's an unusual thing in our part of the world to know a professional golfer. And he is by far the most decorated athlete of North Central Missouri in terms of what he's been able to do in his pro career. And it's really exciting to get to talk to him and hear how down to earth he is, talk about the struggles and the friends he made along the way, and that still resonates with him.
And that Gallatin golf is still a part of who he is, and it's where he came from. He still likes to keep current. He's got a really good friend that's the coach, and so those ties are still there. And it's fresh for us as fans. It's current. We can see his name on a leaderboard, on a weekend and say, hey, I know that person. They're from Gallatin right down the road.
It gives you something to aspire to, and it's no surprise that they did have that second go-round with another great player in Jet Simmons. And then in this past year, Brody Bird won the state championship as a Gallatin golfer. It's not expected, but it's part of their history. It's part of the fabric of what they do.
It's a legacy, you might say.
Yeah. Absolutely. So congratulations to them on 6 state championships in a 20-year period and continued success. And really, they belong to the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and we need to trumpet that. But right now, we just want to thank our listeners for hanging in there with us on Show Me Sports Legacies.